Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Madison Select Board meeting at Monday, January 24, 2022. Please join me in saluting the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's roll call, show everybody's there except for Mr. Vinziano. Consent agenda, warrant number 25, January 1st, January 10th, 2022. And payroll, January 1st, January 13th, 2022. Any motion?
Motion to accept is read.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All in favor. Okay, VFW game of chance.
I'm sorry, yes, the VFW did have an application to authorize game of chance cribbage games for all of 2022. And so their applications here need a motion to approve and then your signatures.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor. Okay. Acceptance of the meeting minutes of January 10, 2022. Do I have a motion to accept them?
Just vote accept.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All in favor. Old business, selectmen's concerns from immediate proceeding meeting. Sally?
I have none, thank you.
Okay, Ron?
None, sir.
Ron?
No.
None for me. Items of communication.
Just a couple things to pass along to the board. Maine DOT has released its work plan for roads and bridges for the next 3 years. The Anson-Madison Bridge is due for a surface replacement that's anticipated to take place this year. Some ditching will be done on Route 148 this year in anticipation for some paving in the next year. If you'd like all the details, the road commissioner has all that information. At the last meeting, the board discussed creating a vaccination policy in light of rules coming down from OSHA. And I included in your packet a little summary from Maine Municipal that talked about the U.S. Supreme Court's action to block that vaccine mandate, and so therefore the state has not taken any action requiring municipalities to do anything. And so we're in a situation right where we left it last meeting that we'll continue to hold on creating a policy. Got some numbers over the weekend from Waste Management from their 2021 totals. It's always of interest. The back gate on Airport Road in Norwood, the amount of tonnage that Madison residents were credited for at the back gate went down by about 17% from 2020 to 2021. But the front gate, the commercial haulers that take trash through the front gate, went up 12.5% from 2020 to 2021. So it ends up kind of a wash overall. And that's about all I have for communications.
Okay. New business. Discuss policing coverage.
So this was an item that Mr. Vinziano wanted on the agenda before we got to the nuts and bolts of the budget coming up in February. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here tonight due to a conflict. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things in regards to policing coverage. So in the December report that the sheriff sends out for the Madison division, I noted that there was a lot of coverage for Madison from deputies that are not dedicated to Madison. And so when we met in September, the sheriff was here, the finance officer from The county was here, and we talked about the fact that our current model is running 2 deputies short. So we have a patrol deputy dedicated to Madison, we have a school resource officer, and we have 2 patrol deputy positions open. And those being filled as best as the sheriff can by people that will take those shifts in Madison for overtime or whatnot. So whenever you see a name that doesn't look like a familiar deputy for Madison in there, it's a sheriff's deputy covering from the county. And that went on quite a bit in December, and it continues to this day. So the sheriff wanted me to bring up a couple of instances where he believes a mature deputy that's been on the job for a couple of years would handle situations better than a brand new deputy that's still learning or going through the academy. And one example he gave was an accident, a hit and run accident out by Rod's Cycle and RV on Lakewood Road. And apparently a vehicle went off the road there, did about $80,000 worth of damage to property at Rod's, and left the scene of the accident. This was covered by a deputy that's been on the job for about 5 years for the county, and through some investigation and through some talking to the potential suspect, he was able to ascertain who did it, what happened, and charge them accordingly. The sheriff is confident that was handled better by a deputy that had a little more experience. The other incident, which caught a lot of people's attention, is when the person drove into the front of the Catholic Church at St. Sebastian's. The deputy that arrived on scene was able to deal with that individual in such a way that kind of brought the whole situation down rather than escalated what could have been a more difficult situation. So the sheriff's position is he's recommending this model where instead of continuing to try to hire 2 more deputies that are dedicated to Madison, which will most likely come in at the very low end of the experience, low end of the pay scale, have to go to the academy for training, he would rather try to fill those positions by scheduling more seasoned deputies from the county to take those Madison shifts right from the sergeant's desk, where automatically you're going to be in Madison for 2 weeks, you're going to be in Madison for 2 weeks, that sort of scheduling process. The board talked about this back in September. They wanted the county to bring us back some more consistent numbers on what this will cost. And I met with the sheriff and Pat Nolan from the county administrator's office on Wednesday of last week. Essentially, I'm looking for the board's direction on a philosophical approach to this, because it's not going to make a whole lot of difference dollars-wise, because the price to provide policing is going to go up just because of the pay increases that are going to have to be made at the whole county-wide level. So in your packets, I put this little sheet here, which shows a 6-year running total of exactly what the people in Madison have paid for policing services. And that includes capital and cruisers and so on and so forth. So on average for the last 6 years, they've paid about $410,000 for policing services. We estimate the way we're tracking it this year by having those positions filled and keeping those 2 open positions looking for applicants, we're probably going to spend about $440,000. With the recommendations that are being made by the Sheriff's Department, either way you look at it, either if we try to fill these positions or we go to the county and they automatically fill the positions, that's probably going to go up another 10%, somewhere in the neighborhood of $480,000 to $500,000. That's what I'm anticipating the policing budget to be to the taxpayer in this coming budget cycle. So I guess what I'm looking for tonight, and I know Mr. Vinziano has weighed in on this, is the consensus of the board to stay with the current model and try to hire people that are dedicated to Madison, or is it to go with the model where the sheriff would assign through the sergeant more seasoned deputies to cover the Madison shifts? So that's where I'm looking for guidance.
Mr. Mooney.
In what area you're talking about as far as trying to keep hiring more deputies, training more deputies. It's costing us more money because we gotta pay for them to go to the academy. And everybody is, in law enforcement, everybody is in the same bucket. There is no interest in that job anymore, and it's hard to get people out there. And if we keep having the sheriff to try to keep replacing and replacing, we have become a training ground and have been for the last few years. And I don't see it being cost productive or saving any money in that mannerism. And you just gave two good examples that the sheriff gave you about a seasoned officer taking care of these crimes. My theory is, I want to see law enforcement in this town taking care of crimes against people first. To heck with the misdemeanors. They come second. You know, the person down there with an expired sticker, registration, or what have you. I think we need to concern ourselves with crimes against people. And the best way to do that is what the sheriff is anticipating or making available to us as a seasoned officer, is being assigned to this town and can address these situations in a professional manner. I'm not for going back to the old way, because it's not conducive to our budget. And everybody's in the same boat, so I don't see how we think we're gonna change that. So that's basically my feelings on it, and I have to agree with the sheriff, and you know, in my experience of being in law enforcement, I think it's gonna work better for the town. You're gonna get more professionalism out here.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
Question, when I heard, excuse me, when I heard what that you were 2 police officers short.
We have been for years.
I know, that's the problem, we have been for years, and it's noticed. You know, I'm right across the street, it says noticed. A lot of times with the speeding of the trucks and everything else going through town, at certain hours of the night, rumbling like 4 or 5 deep through town, no police officers to be found for a while. I mean, this is just a little tiny thing, but there are other things on top of that. Now, you're talking about more cost effective if we have seasoned officers, which I can understand, but is it really cost effective when you can have the sergeant from the table putting out 2 shifts to 2 people? Is that overtime or is that regular time?
It would be regular time. They would be assigned their regular time.
Okay. But still, having 2 police officers that come from Madison would be a nice thing.
And to Mr. Moody's point, we've tried this for 5 years, and even before that, when we had our own police chief, there was always a struggle to keep people in municipal coverage. They always wanted to step up to go to the next level of law enforcement.
Yeah, I know, I understand that, but isn't there a way you can make a, kind of like a binding agreement that have to do a certain period of time?
The sheriff, the last couple hires he's made, the sheriff has said, I want you to sign something that says you'll stay in Madison for 5 years. They wouldn't sign it. But the sheriff had to hire them because he didn't have anybody else. So it's I think you're making good points about the situation we find ourselves in. I think Sally Dwyer had a comment.
Yes, Sally.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Mooney all the way. They're struggling to keep people. I think that we should go along with the suggestions from the sheriff's department. I think they know how to run it, and under the circumstances with trying to find people and keep people, let's take what we can get from them.
Okay. Anything else? I just have one comment. If we go with filling the two positions, how much is this gonna bring our budget up to?
If we try to fill the positions right now.
Yeah.
Like-
I would see it with the people, so we kill everything. So how much is that gonna?
Like going to what the sheriff recommends, where he's gonna
Yeah.
assign it.
Yeah.
I've estimated from what the county's told me, we pay about 440,000 this year. It'll probably go up to about 490 to 500,000, 510.
And this is where we were when people were complaining about too much money and to dissolve the police department.
The last budget in 2015 for the Madison Police Department was 590,000.
600,000.
600,000, yeah. essentially the cost that you save in this model is the sheriff takes the role of the chief. So you're not necessarily paying for pay and benefits for a chief. That's one of the savings.
Go ahead, Mark.
The other thing you might think about also is, whereas we are in business with the sheriff's department, unfortunately for him, if something turns bad, the lawsuits are going on his desk and not on yours.
That is a fact, yes. Yes. So I don't need any action from the board tonight. I just kind of need to know, because the sheriff asked me, they don't want to put a whole lot of effort into creating this new budget if the selectmen don't want to go in this direction. But if you'd like to see the numbers and you'd like to see that, they'll have it ready for our budget discussions coming up at the end of February.
Great.
Yeah, I think this trying to hire new people is not gonna work for us. The sheriff has a lot more to offer, and if he can hire them and he can ship them, we'll probably be taken better care of for police protection.
All right, thank you. That's all I needed on that item.
Okay, anything else? Is that it? All right, number 2, discuss request for ARPA funds from Madison Electric Board.
So in your packet is a letter signed by the board of directors from MEW. And I read it carefully today, and I probably shouldn't have put on the agenda a request, because this letter really doesn't ask for anything. It simply says that Madison Electric's board would like to reward our employees in the same manner as the town of Madison. And I know what this is referring to. This is referring to the town's decision to pay certain year-end bonuses to the employees as part of hazard pay out of the ARPA funds. So Madison Electric's board has asked if, essentially, if the town of Madison would share some of that ARPA money so that their board could reward their employees as well. I told Marty Berry, the superintendent, that I would bring it to the board, and so I have. And it's really up to the board's discretion.
Well,
I have a conflict of interest, my son works there, so I'm saying nothing.
see if I have this straight now. The reason the Madison Electric does not belong under the umbrella of the town of Madison, only on certain things, is because they went, when they started borrowing the big bucks, $100,000 to $1 million and things like this, to upgrade and get everything going the way they have it now, is that's when they wanted to break out and go on their own, I believe, as a separate entity to Madison.
So I wasn't around, but my understanding is from the 1940s to the 1970s. I'm just reading the history. From the 1940s to the 1970s, Madison Electric existed as a department of the town of Madison.
Correct.
So you had a town that was taking in tax revenues and ratepayer revenues. But not all ratepayers to MEW are taxpayers in Madison, and not all taxpayers in Madison are ratepayers in MEW. So from what I understood, there was always this commingling of funds in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And if the town needed money, they'd take from the ratepayers. If MEW needed money, they'd take from the taxpayers. And so in 1974, they established their own charter from the legislature. And the state legislature said MEW is a department of the town, but will have a separate board of directors, and there will be no commingling of funds. That's essentially the two big things that come out of the charter. And so since then, Madison Electric has operated as a separate department of the town.
Yeah.
And listen to you make that statement, Tim. I think it's up to us to take care of our department, who we govern. And whatever monies that are available for this department, I think should stay within the boundaries of this department. Nothing against MEW as far as that goes, but it's, in all reality, I mean, it's two different departments.
Because after I reread this letter, there really is no request here. I don't think there's anything the board has to take action on to either approve or deny anything. So in this case, you can say your piece and maybe just take no action on it.
Okay, any other-
I agree, Tim, with the fact that, in reading this, and I've read it a couple times, it isn't really asking for anything, so. Well, do you think they'll come back and make a request at some point if we don't take any action?
I think if the board's position is, like Mr. Moody said, to take care of the employees that are under the direct jurisdiction, I think that will be, I would say that would be a sufficient answer. If MEW's board, just like the school board or the water district board or the sanitary board, if they want to do something to reward their employees, they can do that. And they don't have to come to the selectmen for any money or any permission.
Right, I just wonder if they're looking for some of that money from,
Oh, I'm sure they are,
yeah.
but I don't think they went about it the right way with this letter, so.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, number 3, I think we're gonna pay something here. Discuss a new tanker truck purchase.
Chief French is here, and I know that Selectman Mantor has been involved in this process, and what I think is they've got some figure, or at least some specs together on what they want to build, and they've been working with Tammy to get those specs out to bid. So, am I right?
Exactly.
Okay, good.
First of all, I want to give my condolences to Tom Brady and Tim for the loss of the football game. When I'm on camera, I thought I'd get that out there. I want to thank Marty Berry, Brian Gordon, Patrick McGurn, Jeff Ober, Selectman Glenn Manna, and special thanks to Dan Bosworth, who's really been the head of this and really kept things going for us and brought so much stuff to my attention that couldn't even imagine how thick the steel's got to be, to how the tread would be on the tires and blah, 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 blah. So I've got 4 specs out for Tammy to email out in the next day or two. The deadline would be 23rd of February. On the 25th of February, around noontime or so, Tim don't know yet, but we're gonna, if there's any bids that's been mailed in, we'll open them up at that time, and anybody's welcome to come in and look at them with us. And that's on the 25th. The 28th, we'll meet with you selectmen. We probably won't have a definite answer for you, because we really want to go through these specs with a fine-tooth comb. There's one company out of Island Falls in Maine, and the rest of them are out of state. The other 2 are Massachusetts, I believe, and the other one's in Missouri. Well, Missouri might surprise you. Yeah.
You gonna put it on a tractor and bring it up?
Excuse me?
How they gonna drive
They
it
would,
up?
if it was coming from Missouri, it'd be free shipping, it would be on a flatbed. They would not drive it like they did the last tanker. Yeah, that's in the specs.
So
Anybody?
just to remind the board where we are financially, what we're looking at budget-wise. Last town meeting raised $150,000. The select board added $50,000 from the ARPA funds. So there's $200,000 already dedicated to this truck. What Don and his team are bringing to the budget meetings is an idea of what that final figure would be, so that you can kind of craft that article for town meeting to see how much more it would take. I know initially the talks were, somewhere between $320,000, $360,000, somewhere in that ballpark. You should have a pretty good number come that 28th of February.
Tony, one question. You said you're gonna have the 23rd of this month, of February rather, you're gonna have it all mailed out and everything, and then you're gonna want the bids back to 25th?
No.
No.
Tammy's gonna mail the bids out within the next day or 2.
Oh, okay.
And on the deadline is when they gotta get them back to us by the 23rd. And then on the 25th, that Friday, we'll meet and go over them. Another thing that we did put in the bids is some, we need some 15-foot suction hose. We want to add a 35-foot extension ladder. There's flashlights we want to put on it. There's a number of things. And that added up to about $16,000 extra dollars. And the deck gun that we was looking at, if we go that route, we should put a deck gun on this. It's going to be around $6,000 plus. So there's wiggle room there if we have to. We can't get it right now. We'll add to it in another year or two if we have to.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you.
Sally?
Oh, I'm all good, thank you.
Okay. Number 4. Now discuss consideration for opt-in for adult use marijuana.
Okay. We had a request from a local business that got this conversation on the agenda. Let me just give you a little bit of background so everybody's on the same page. In 2018, voters at town meeting passed a prohibition ordinance for retail, adult use, recreational. Those are the 3 ways to discuss non-medical marijuana. I think everybody's on the same page that we have at least 4 storefront operations in Madison. All of those are owned and operated under the medical marijuana guidance of the state. The recreational or adult use is differently governed through the Office of Marijuana Policy. When the town of Madison passed that prohibition ordinance, that meant if anyone wanted to open a retail establishment for marijuana or a grow facility or something to that effect that was not covered under the umbrella of medical, that the town would have to go to town meeting to take a couple of steps to change that. First of all, the town meeting vote would have to dissolve Chapter 180 of our Code of Ordinances that has the marijuana prohibition in it. And then the town meeting would have to do what they call opt-in, say that the town of Madison is willing to take retail marijuana establishments, and then the town would have to establish some policies. So it's kind of a 3-step process. You have to dissolve the current prohibition, opt in, and then create policies by which you would govern retail or recreational marijuana. But because a local business asked for it, I invited Mr. Roger Parlin to come. He has done some legwork on this. He's asked some questions on Facebook and received some signatures. And I thought at the very least I'd give him an opportunity to speak. So welcome, Mr. Parlin.
Hello, I'm representing Country Farm, and so I haven't had a whole lot of time to really do much when it comes to, let's just say, like pre-existing ordinances, but from what I've gathered, it's good when it comes to adding more to the town's budget. You know, this could really drive out street drug users, and in my petition, in 12 days, I managed to get 138 signatures. 40 non-local, 98 local. Some of the people have lived here in Madison their entire lives. So I find it to be extremely beneficial for our community and also for our business to do something different, because yes, for medical storefronts, you know, to compete with a lot of oversaturation in our community, whether it be Irving, Big Apple for convenience, you know, we're really looking to start a new market and see how it goes, and we're willing to do anything requested to do such things for our business. Would you guys like to see the petition I've prepared?
Do you have a copy that you could leave with us?
I got the original copy and I got a second copy. So.
Well, leave us the second copy.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I didn't
Can
technically,
you read that at the top?
Can I read it? What's at the top?
Which,
Right.
yeah.
So what is written at the top of this is a petition to stop local prohibition for adult use and sale of recreational cannabis in Madison, Maine. So that's what it is, that's how the petition is titled. So if I could comment on a couple of procedural things. There are two ways this gets to town meeting. Either you as a select board decide you want to create an article on at town meeting, and you can do that throughout the budget process. If you, as a board of selectmen, choose not to do that, then a petition can be submitted to the town clerk to get an article on town meeting warrant. That petition would be reviewed by the town office staff to count only the number of registered voters in Madison, because that's the key number that is important. I'm looking at Kathy for her to nod her head. And then there's also a threshold number that has to be met.
10% of the last gubernatorial race, and I could look that up, but usually, from what in the past, it's usually between 180 and 200 signatures. Usually, I mean, but it depends on how many people voted in the last gubernatorial race, and I can look that up.
Can you look up my phone numbers that have signed my petition to see how many are registered voters?
No,
Actually,
I'm not gonna do that.
okay.
No.
So the other thing that's important, and I think you kind of leaned on it right there, the rules of the town clerk will allow her to take in the information, but she can't coach you. She can't tell you how to write the petition. She can't tell you, okay, this name's good, this name's not. It's whatever you collect. If you turn it in, she's the one that determines whether up or down it goes to town meeting warrant.
Okay. And, excuse me, so the petition would be the next step, or is there, if it's approved, do we have to take it to petition? Because the petition I prepared is just a friendly petition.
Right.
It's
not
just
official.
to show an example.
So what you've provided tonight is not necessarily a petition for town meeting. This is just kind of a show of support for your idea.
Yes.
Okay, fine. That's good clarification.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a license?
A medical license?
No,
or-
a license to sell recreational marijuana?
No, in order to get the license, the town has to agree.
That's the opt-in part.
Okay.
So a business that wants to do business in a town that hasn't opted in, the first thing that the state office of marijuana policy is gonna ask him is, has the town opted in? And if they haven't, it stops right there and he can't get a license for this town.
And one more question?
Yes, sir.
And what's your name again?
Roger Parlin?
Are you from around here, Roger?
Yes, I've stayed here for about 5 years.
You've been here for 5 years?
Yes.
So you're main resident and everything?
Born and raised, yes.
Okay. And you're gonna be the owner of this business?
Co-owner.
Huh?
Co-owner. Me and, Ram is my boss.
Oh, and where's he from?
Excuse me?
Where's he from?
India, I believe.
Okay. And he's the main resident too?
No, only me.
Okay.
He resides in Massachusetts,
Okay.
but he's been very supportive of everything that I do. He's always, just taken advice and business strategy. We're good friends and business partners.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions?
So I just want to make this as clear as I can for Roger. And I don't need you to take a vote or any action on it. And so I guess the obvious question is, would this board be inclined to opt in to retail marijuana?
Ron?
I'll respond to that by, when the medical marijuana thing was brought to the town accepted that, but they didn't want anything to do with the retail end of it.
Right, just a clarification there, the town didn't have to opt in for medical marijuana, the state allowed that.
Yes, but we did take it for the town to
Now, the town has no ordinance on medical, it's only governed by the state. So, but what we took to the town meeting was a prohibition on recreation.
yes,
Yeah.
and they spoke,
The town meeting spoke, yes,
yes. And it wasn't pro,
correct.
that's all I do.
I have a question.
Yes, Sally?
If we do not choose to opt in, that's the end of it, or does can they go to the state and,
So as far as getting a recreational license, if the town doesn't opt in, then the state doesn't award a license for any business in this
just wanted to
town.
clarify that.
Yeah.
Yes.
If the town does opt in,
Ron?
if the town opts in, then the town itself can actually stipulate regulations
Correct.
to on the business itself, to regulate it to a certain extent.
To
My
a s-
thing is, I think it would be a good idea because of the fact of the economics of it, the money you generate, the town itself would be amazing. As long as the town itself regulates. You understand? Because this is different from that.
Right.
It's not the same thing. So for the recreational use, as far as, concerns about, other activities, stuff like that, to keep that regulated, as far as the business, then I think it'd probably be a good idea. But it's up to the selectmen.
Roger?
Yeah, so when you talk about regulating, I would love to offer, food grade sanitation and also a limited access area, which is super important. Surveillance, everything to make sure it's completely clean, operational, professional. I have had experience in culinary arts for about 10 years. I've passed many food inspections, so I could offer complete professionalism and care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As far as the potency of the product itself, it won't be on the same line as metal.
It'd all be treated the same, correct? Because it would all undergo testing and proof of percentage and lineage.
Yeah, but medical has a higher grade than, let's say, because in certain states like in Colorado, a person who wants recreational use can only get up to 90% THC. And,
At a medical facility, you
Right.
can get up to, let's just say,
but a medical,
130.
right, that's
I
only a
understand.
person who's medically cleared. So, that's the thing that has to work as well.
Yes.
Because medical is one thing, it's like, it's like giving somebody opioid,
Yep, it has to
for
be
pain,
tested.
and then they're
Right.
using it later on, they get the same opioid for something less. You're creating a problem.
I personally don't agree when it comes to comparing to an opiate.
I'm not comparing it, I'm
I
comparing
understand.
the situation. It's not, it has nothing to do with something. Medical's medical.
Okay, we'll get more done. You guys, if you want to talk, do it after me.
But for any concerns when it's in regards to that, there's a place called the Maine Office of Marijuana Policy, and that would be where you could take most of those questions to.
Okay. All right, so on this one right here, opting in is, we're just gonna wait and see if he gets the signatures and gets enough and stuff?
Unless there's a motion by someone on the select board to put this on another agenda as an action item to opt in, then that could be the way it goes. But if there's no action taken by the select board, then the message would be to Mr. Parlin that he would have to pursue a petition.
Okay, So, any discussion or any motions? Seeing none and hearing none. Okay, let's move on. Number 5, discuss update to dangerous building, again, 32 Hayden Street.
So at the last meeting, the board gave the go-ahead to use the contractor that we had gotten in touch with, and he finished the work on Friday. And so that building is gone. There's a couple pictures I have here of him in process, and then everything being finished and completed out there. There was no basement to that building, so it was just on cement pads, so it's all clear, even, level ground. And now the process goes for payment. So the contractor will submit his bill to the town. The town will pay that bill out of the funds that we have in our foreclosed properties account. And then we will submit a bill for reimbursement to the property owner. If he's not able to reimburse within 30 days, it'll be added to his property taxes as a supplemental tax. And this was the conversation that we had with this property owner back in August, September. So.
Did both buildings get taken down?
Yes, that little shed all the way around the corner, yeah. The only thing that we left there was the pad that the garage was on. And he had some lumber and some metal roofing stacked up, and we left that there. So, but all the buildings are gone. That was just a report out.
Okay, yeah.
No action.
No problem.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
All right, number 6, discuss schedule for municipal budgeting review.
So in your packets, you've got a sheet that looks like this, that essentially is the one pager that we pass out around this time. And I know we're at the end of January, but we've already started some of the processes. I've been discussing the police budget with the county. The chief has been working on this tanker pumper truck. So in February, the department heads will start going over their numbers with the finance director. Road commissioner and I will start talking about road surface management, capital equipment projects for the highway department. And then, as the chief alluded to, February 28th will be the meeting where we will invite, it's not the budget meeting, but we'll invite some members of the advisory board, all those that want to attend in person or by Zoom, and we'll start talking high level about the budget, what it's going to look like, how we're going to fund it, talk about any impacts to the tax rate and that sort of thing. On March the 14th, the department heads will be here to answer any questions to the board about the budget. By March 28th, the Board of Selectmen will have the opportunity to review the budget, make any of their comments on it. After that meeting, the packets go out to the Budget Advisory Board members. So the big meeting where we try to cover all the items in one night with the Budget Advisory Committee in person, on Zoom, the whole show is Wednesday, April 6th. And then after that, we move the budget to town meeting. So does anybody have any questions or comments about the budget schedule? So if not, I'm going to send this out to members of the budget committee tomorrow and department heads so they know what is in front of them. And that's all I had for that item.
Okay. Number 7, discuss the town manager's evaluation process.
Again, this is mostly informational. In your packets, you'll see some comments I made on the 2021 goals for the town manager. And then I put together some 2022 goals. I draw your attention to this sheet here that has the comparison of my time. As you know, finding a code officer took a lot of my time last year, and I spent probably about 37% of my time in code and planning, and only 15% in economic development. I'm pleased to say this past year I'm back up to about 43% of my time in economic development, but other things are creeping up on that as well. And unfortunately, we'll probably be right back in the search for a code officer by the end of March, if not right now. Just because the code officer we have was offered a full-time job in Winslow that we can't compete with. I give you all this information, and in your packets at the town office, you should have received the 4 or 5 page format that we use for town manager review. If there aren't any questions or comments about it, I was going to meet with Chairman Vinziano just to see what day he would be available to do it, whether we do it the first meeting in February or the second meeting in February. Last couple of years, we've got it wrapped up in February, and I'd like to keep to that schedule. So, any thoughts, comments, questions? All right, so that's what we'll do. I'll check with the chair. And before you get too excited about wrapping up this meeting, if there's not a whole lot of selectmen concerns, I do have 2 citizen concerns that have come to me that I need to share with you. So,
Okay. Sally, any concerns?
No, I'm all set, thank you.
Okay, Lon?
Yes. Has anybody approached the town from the Catholic cemetery?
that's one of my citizens' concerns.
Okay, I'll wait till you.
Okay.
Anything else, Lon?
No, that's all.
Lon?
No, just, we put about 10 hours in that fire truck committee. That, it wasn't a 15-minute bargain.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And I think the fire department is very thankful to have you there, so we appreciate that.
Hope so.
He's pretty knowledgeable.
And
Sherry
not for
couldn't
me.
wait to get him out of the house either.
Yeah, he'll be there, I had to call him. Yeah, he'll be there. Okay, citizens' concern.
So I've got a couple here. The first one was one that Mr. Moody referred to. I met with a representative from the St. Sebastian Cemetery Committee. He had 2 requests for the town. One I've talked to the road commissioner about, and I think we can kind of work on with some help from Jim Elias down there, who's kind of the overseer of the pines. Where the town's property abuts to the Catholic cemetery on Father Rawl Road, there's a lot of overgrowth in the trees, and they are starting to encroach upon some of the graves that are on that side. So the cemetery committee from St. Sebastian's has asked if we could clear the trees back about 10 feet on our property. After talking with the road commissioner, I don't think that's going to be an issue, and we could probably do that and not have to worry about a whole lot. The second request he made is churches are not taking in as much money as they used to, and the maintenance costs of that cemetery, they're running out of funds for that. So he asked if the town would consider taking that cemetery on as an additional cemetery that the town maintains. What do you think?
I understand that, maybe I'm wrong, the town of Skowhegan contributes some money to that cemetery committee?
I could look into that, I'm not sure.
I think they do, and it's, if it serves my memory right, it's somewhere $650 a year or something towards the maintenance of that cemetery.
How much they contribute?
Huh?
How much was it?
I don't know. I heard, and
Yeah.
this is just something he
Yeah.
needs to check out. As far as this town, this is my own personal thought, is that as far as that cemetery goes, you know, in the old days, if you was Catholic, you got down, you was buried there, if you was Protestant, you was buried there. There was no happy medium.
Right.
There was a fence. Well, times have changed. And the people, you go down in that cemetery, and most of them are filled with Madison people.
Right.
Not only that, they're filled with a lot of veterans. For this town to say that we cannot help them in some way, where it's our own people and our own veterans down there, I think it would be a disgrace. So whatever, you know, you can find out and whatever, you know, we can do reasonably to help, I would be interested in listening to that, Tim.
I think that what you've mentioned is a good way of going about it, to see what other communities do if they can make a direct donation rather than taking over
Right.
the maintenance. I talked to, you may remember George Elias.
That Florida guy?
Yeah, the guy's in Florida. He was complaining because it was 68 degrees the other. I asked his opinion because one, he maintained that cemetery for years,
40.
and he certainly understands what goes into it. He said it's the cost of maintenance is not huge. However, he couldn't see a way that the town could take ownership of it, or would the church be willing to deed ownership over to the town? And George's concern was about spending public money on private property. And I said, that's a good point. But making a donation is another way that the town could support that. So why don't I check with Skowhegan and a couple other places? And are you okay if I bring this back at another meeting as an agenda item? Okay.
I would like to entertain it at another, and I don't know, probably the priest or whoever is, heads it up there, you probably got all the figures for you.
Yep. The other concern I had was brought to me by the leadership. Oh, go ahead.
I wish I had brought this to the town probably 15 years ago when we did all that buying of that land up there in Forest Hill. I mean, we could have saved a lot of money on that. But yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. The other concern is kind of in the same vein. The leadership of the American Legion has the building behind Rennie's in the municipal parking lot back there. And they are trying to determine what to do with their building. And one of their suggestions is, would the town be willing to sell off the far corner of the municipal parking lot to the American Legion? In exchange, the town would take the current building of the American Legion. So I told them, same thing I told the folks from the Catholic Cemetery, I'll bring it to the board and see if it's something you'd like to entertain. I did draw you a map if you bothered to look at what I sent the other day. Okay, and so essentially, on one hand, the town would be able to allow the American Legion to build a new building at the far corner of that parking lot. However, the obvious issue is what to do with that building that they currently meet in. Apparently, they don't have the funds or the desire to renovate that building. They'd rather build something new. What they're asking is, would the town be willing to accept the responsibility of tearing down that building and the cost associated with tearing down that building? It's a big ask.
One stumbling block, I think, I'm not positive, but I think that's on the historic register of buildings. Because the way the roof is made, the beams are on the outside, not on the inside, everything's, and I think that was 22 or something like that. 1922.
So I've never run across that building on the historical registry. The only buildings that are on the historical registry are the Weston Farm, Lakewood Theater, and the library. But I can certainly look into it.
Okay.
Are you saying they want to tear down the Legion building that they have now and put a new one up back here?
They would like to put a new building up in the corner, and they would like you and the other taxpayers of Madison to tear down that building.
Oh, that's a heck of a deal.
And you get the land, which is almost half the parking lot.
So, and you would get the land with it, so assuming that that building was gone, it would create a better parking lot without that old building in the middle of it. What I told the folks in Legion, the only way I think this would be feasible is if we were able to find some grant money that would allow us to remove that building. And that's a stretch. So, but I just wanted to bring those to your attention.
Yes, Glenn?
My thought was that if we did this to them, then who's gonna knock on the door next?
I think that's a realistic concern, because
And that portion we want is where this winter hasn't been too bad, but in a normal winter, that's where all the snow is piled up. And the highway has a chance to haul it off, and if it's a pile of snow and they had a function, they'd be calling somebody. Very good.
That's correct.
Yep.
so those are my citizens' concerns.
So, we have that ordinance that you can only park on the side of the road within a certain amount of time a year. When I lived in the city, there was always a place where you were capable of parking, let's just say, if there was a parking ban and such. And this area right here would be perfect. Instead of worrying about tearing down and rebuilding in the area, why don't you utilize it potentially for the residents? For a place where they can park their vehicles if parking's not an option. I mean, realistically, that would be probably the best use of the space, would it not?
I think you've still got snow removal issues.
We still have snow removal issues. Forever, leaving warnings on people's cars. The snow needs to be removed in a certain amount of time, so there's no parking period, like November 1st, April 1st.
Understandable. I just pitched an idea out there.
I have one, there's no cops.
So on the cemetery, you recommend we'll bring this back, right?
We'll bring it back in a future meeting as an agenda item.
Okay, and what are you gonna do with the Legion now?
Do you have any appetite for discussing this option? No. Then I'll report that back.
Which option,
For-
option?
For switching land with the Legion.
Okay.
Well,
I think
we
a
can't
lot more
switch.
information with regard to cost and all that.
Right.
We would consider something like that.
I would say I wouldn't bring it back to the board unless we found some funding for it.
I didn't get the impression with switching land, I thought we were paying them for the building, and that they're gonna take that money and pay for the corner lot that we're gonna sell them.
Right, I mean, they're talking about transferring, so whatever money could be made on one way or the other, those are the details that we haven't got to yet.
I didn't think they had any.
That's why I think finding funding is gonna be the thing that brings it back.
Okay, anything else? I'm looking at you, Tim. Okay, entertain a motion,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you,
We're
folks.
adjourned.